summer of 2016, I visited the United Kingdom and Ireland with my partner Carol. We were on a 10-day group tour with 24 other Americans, organized by Go Ahead Tours. 2 weeks before we landed in London, over 80 people had been run down by a truck in the French resort of Nice. While the threat of a terrorist attack is ever present, it does not and should not ever deter us from going about our business at home or traveling abroad. Less than a month before our tour, Brits had narrowly voted to leave the European Union. The outcome of this so-called Brexit referendum was a huge surprise to the British and to everyone else. Brexit was a hot topic for Jim, our main guide, as well as for the other guides in Scotland and Ireland. One of the best-known women in the world is Queen Elizabeth II, Britain's longest reigning monarch. No visit to London would be complete without seeing the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace, the Queen's home for over 90 years. The British Empire of centuries past has thankfully been replaced by a commonwealth of independent countries, but the British Crown remains a symbol of stability and continuity in a time of geopolitical uncertainty and change. Their greatest gift to the world is the English language, a relatively simple tool that has at long last enabled most of the populations around the world to communicate with each other. 2016 was an important election year. Both the Republican and Democratic conventions took place during our tour. We were able to watch some of the proceedings on television. We also had some lively political conversations with other folks on our tour, most of whom were Hillary Clinton supporters. London has the oldest scientific zoo in the world. It was founded almost 200 years ago for the scientific study of animals and has been open to the public since 1847. On the afternoon that we visited, the temperature was in the 90s, and the animals seemed as uncomfortable as their human visitors. A good place to be was in the aquarium. After 2 nights in London, we boarded our train for Scotland in King's Cross Station. Built in the middle of the 19th century, the station has been featured in numerous books and films.
So guys, just come in, gather in a bit. So, as you can see, there's a severe lack of seating in the station here. I mean, there are cafes and places like that where you can...
King's Cross now features a Harry Potter store selling memorabilia to the countless fans of the popular book series. The station appeared to be less busy than many others I've seen. Our train to Edinburgh was comfortable enough, but no comparison to the high-speed trains of mainland Europe or Asia. Scotland has been part of the United Kingdom for over 300 years. It occupies the northern third of the island of Great Britain. About half of Scotland's 5 million inhabitants live in the cities of Edinburgh and Glasgow. High Street is the central part of the old town's main artery, known as the Royal Mile. Perched atop its peak is Edinburgh Castle, a historic landmark that is visible from most of the city. Following a referendum, a Scottish Parliament was established in 1997 with authority over areas of domestic policy. The strikingly modern Parliament building was designed by Spanish architect Enrique Miralles and formally opened by Queen Elizabeth in 2004. Just across the street from the new Parliament building is historic Holyrood Palace, a adjacent to the ruins of a 12th century Augustinian abbey. The palace was the main residence of Scottish royalty, beginning in the 16th century, the scene of centuries of coronations, murder, and intrigue. Today, it's the official residence of the British monarchs in Scotland. Queen Elizabeth spends a week at Holyrood House every summer, hosting receptions and performing ceremonial duties. The historic centre of Edinburgh consists of cobblestone streets lined with small shops. The streets are filled with pedestrians, primarily tourists, and street performers of all kinds. Despite the large number of visitors, the city somehow manages to keep its distinctive flair. After centuries of armed struggles and bloody wars with its neighbour to the south, in 1707 Scotland ceased to exist as an independent country when it unified with England. However, frictions and tensions with England have remained in this predominantly Catholic portion of the island. One of the most popular 19th century writers was Sir Walter Scott. His books Ivanhoe, Rob Roy, and other historic novels were immensely popular in the first half of the 19th century. He purchased a large house and property near the River Tweed, which he enlarged into an impressive Gothic baronial mansion named Abbotsford. Scott collected everything from armor to zoological specimens, which cover the walls and fill numerous display cases.
And Charlotte, his wife, said it would be awfully nice to have a place for the young people to flirt and have romantic get-togethers. So Scott said, oh, well, okay, I guess you can do that. And then with his
St. Mary's Abbey, Melrose, is also near the River Tweed in the Scottish Borders region of the country. The ruins date back to the early 12th century, when the monastery was founded by Cistercian monks. 100 monks lived here and farmed the surrounding land. The structure was damaged and repaired after several wars. Melrose's last monk died in 1590. For centuries, the Scottish village of Gretna Green has been known as a place for runaway weddings. Located near the southern border, it used to be possible for teenage boys and English girls as young as 12 to elope and get married here without their parents' permission. Today, it's still a popular wedding locale. We drove through the lush green landscapes to England's Lake District in beautiful Cheshire County. On the edge of the town of Grasmere are the graves of Mary and William Wordsworth, as well as their home, Dove Cottage. Built in the 17th century, the poet continued to live here with his sister even after his marriage to Mary Hutchinson in 1802. When they had 3 children and needed more space, they sold the house to their friend Thomas de Quincey, a literary drug addict. His autobiographical Confessions of an English Opium Eater made him famous almost overnight in 1821. Wrexham is the largest city in northern Wales. It has a gritty feel to it and very few tourists. The principal site is St. Giles Church, which dates from the 14th century and is the largest parish church in Wales. From Holyhead in Wales, we boarded a ferry for the 3-hour trip across the Irish Sea to Dublin, the Irish capital. This crossing is among the largest and busiest ferry routes anywhere in the world. Each boat carries more than 1,000 cars and twice as many passengers on each crossing. The experience of being in Ireland for the first time was certainly one of the high points of this tour for me. My connection to this country is not so much through my own ancestry, which includes some Irish roots along with ancestors from Scotland, England, Lithuania, and Poland. My strongest impressions of the country have come through the arts, principally Irish literature, music, and film.
Dublin's quite a small city compared to London, compared to even to Edinburgh. It's smaller than Edinburgh. It's very manageable. It's quite low rise. It's not so big. These cranes have actually gone up in the last few months. This is, I mean, I haven't been here since May. I haven't been here since the end of May, and a lot of these cranes are new. Rather a iconic bridge, new bridge they built over the Liffey here, shaped like Ireland's national musical instrument, the harp. It pivots at the base of the harp so you can open it. And then these are a lot of the kind of big office blocks and new apartment blocks at this end of the River Liffey. So you've got the likes of PricewaterhouseCoopers on the right, and AIG, big insurance company, on the right as well. But this part of town was earmarked to become Little Manhattan in about 2006 during the property bubble, and then when it all burst with an almighty bang, nothing happened for a good few years, apart from lots of people went bankrupt. And it's good to see now it's back. Things are happening again. They might well be swimming in the river. They're basically swimming in the sea, because this river is obviously we're only a few hundred yards away from the sea, so it's tidal. So you can see the tide is high at the moment. So it's emptying out into the Irish Sea there, so it goes up and down twice a day with the tide.
They serve liquor on Sunday?
Do they sell liquor on a Sunday? Yeah, they sell alcohol on Sunday here, yeah. You've got to do something after you've been to church. Look left now. So the statues of those people carrying the dead. Yeah, 1 million people died and 1 million people emigrated in the Great Famine in Ireland in the early 1850s.
The National Museum has wonderful collections from prehistoric times, including Viking artifacts and stunning gold work. Among the more unusual displays are the so-called bog bodies, human cadavers that were naturally mummified and preserved in peat bogs for thousands of years. Dublin is situated at the mouth of the Liffey River, where human settlements began thousands of years ago. The river divides the northern, traditionally working-class part of the city from the more upscale sections in the south. We thoroughly enjoyed our Irish stew with a pint of Guinness at a traditional pub, which featured some fine local jazz talent. The city's oldest medieval cathedral is Christ Church, which dates from the 12th century. St. Patrick's Cathedral, completed in the 13th century, is the country's largest church and serves as the national cathedral for all of Ireland. There is evidence throughout the building of the church's strong support for various military campaigns, from medieval crusades to the present. Colorful banners belonging to the Order of St. Patrick Knights hang above the choir stalls. Jonathan Swift, author of Gulliver's Travels, is buried here. For most of my adult life, the so-called Troubles in Northern Ireland dominated the news coming out of Europe during the last third of the 20th century. Dublin Castle dates back to King John of England. For most of the last 800 years, the castle served as British government headquarters and the official residence of the English monarch's representative in Ireland. Since Irish independence in 1921, it is now mainly used for official ceremonial functions of the Irish government, such as receptions, state dinners, and conferences. Depending on location, Ireland has between 150 and 250 rainy days per year. Our visit to the Rock of Cashel in Tipperary County was one of these wet days, which added a characteristic Irish feel to the whole experience. The complex consists of medieval ruins dating back some 900 years, including the remains of a cathedral, a chapel, and a round tower. During the 17th century Irish Confederate Wars, around 1,000 Irish soldiers, civilians, and clerics were massacred here by an English Protestant army. The gloomy plateau includes an extensive graveyard with Irish crosses, where previously the victims were buried 6 deep following the infamous massacre in 1647. For me, this site epitomized the country's natural beauty and cultural richness, as well as Ireland's tragic 1,000-year struggles with its neighbouring island.
Bookmakers are on every street in the British Isles, Ireland, and the UK. We love a flutter on the horses and the dogs, and pretty much anything else. Football, you can gamble on pretty much anything legally in the British Isles and Ireland. There's another bookmaker on the right.
Blarney Castle is near Cork in the River Martin, surrounded by scenic woodlands, a lake, and gardens. I enjoyed walking around these lovely gardens instead of climbing to the top of the castle and kissing the stone for which this castle is best known. Legend has it that whoever kisses the Blarney Stone will be endowed with the gift of gab or become skillful at flattery. I'm not superstitious, nor do I feel the need to enhance my eloquence. I love to kiss humans, but not a block of carboniferous limestone that has been kissed by millions of other tourists. However, I did enjoy watching others lie down and lean over backwards to perform the silly ritual.
Farms on the other side.
Oh my God! No, it wasn't a line.
It just took me 10 minutes.
The Ring of Kerry is a coastal route in southwestern Ireland that covers 112 miles of some of the country's most spectacular scenery.
It's the birthplace of Daniel O'Connell. If you remember, the main drag in Dublin is called O'Connell Street, and there was a statue of Daniel O'Connell at the bottom of that.
Daniel O'Connell is revered in Ireland as the liberator. His stature approaches that of St. Patrick. In the first half of the 19th century, he successfully campaigned for Catholic emancipation, including the right for Catholics to sit in the Parliament of the United Kingdom. He also advocated repealing the Union of Great Britain and Ireland, but that didn't happen until the 20th century, following a war of independence and a civil war.
Daniel O'Connell, so on the right hand side, the Daniel O'Connell Memorial Church. So it's the only church in Ireland to be named after a person, not after a saint or the Virgin Mary.
Waterville was a favorite vacation spot for the British-born actor Charlie Chaplin and his large family. Una and Charlie, who had 8 children together, first came here in 1959 and returned every year for more than a decade. After stepping down as President of France in May 1969, Charles de Gaulle spent 6 weeks secluded in the picturesque village of Sneem. There's good reason that guides often place these picturesque bays and lakes at the very end of the Irish tours. Killarney County is hard to beat, and anything following it would seem like a disappointing come down.
The church here, that sits over the site of a mass grave from the famine in the 1850s.
One of the highlights that followed Killarney's spectacular scenery was the live show by Celtic Steps, who perform regularly next to the Killarney racetrack. This troupe of world-class performers puts on a great live show of traditional Irish music, song, and dance. Our last night was spent in a beautiful hotel on the edge of Limerick, surrounded by grazing cattle and horses. Near the end of the tour, we went jaunting through Killarney National Park. Our leisurely carriage ride through the country's first national park brought us into the largest native forest remaining in Ireland, an important habitat for the last herd of red deer left on the island. Starting in the 17th century, the woods were exploited for charcoal production. After the Industrial Revolution, charcoal was used to fire the local iron industry. Ross Castle is a 15th century tower house that was once residence of the chieftain O'Donoghue Moore. Our 10-day tour took us through some of the major sites in England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. There is much to see on these beautiful islands, whose dynamic culture, industry, trade, and military expansion have left their mark on the United States and the entire planet. What was the center of the largest empire in world history has now shrunk back to once again being little more than 2 rainy islands off the coast of Europe. At the same time, the English spirit now extends globally, but without the force of arms. Wherever English is spoken, a singular achievement that will remain unmatched for the foreseeable future. We were concerned that the final major site on our tour, the Cliffs of Moher, would remain invisible due to thick fog. Luckily, the skies cleared and the fog lifted for only a few short minutes, allowing us to see this breathtaking vista. These shale and sandstone cliffs are home to more than 20 bird species, including Atlantic puffins and razorbills. It's not hard to see why Ireland is called the Emerald Isle, a name it justly deserves.